welcome to everybody that's here already. It gives me absolutely great pleasure to host another webinar for It's Just Cricket and Infinite Sports with my trusty colleague, Chris McHardy from Dubai, I 103.8. We're really privileged to welcome a good friend of mine, captain of the West Indies, Jason Holder. Jason, welcome.
Yeah, thanks, Sam. Yeah, thanks for having me. Hello to everyone. I'm glad to be here. And yeah, as Sam said, I've met Sam. I've known Sam, for a little while now. And, we try to keep in close contact. And, he's one that's always picking my brain about certain things to do with academies and training and practice schedules and these kind of things. So glad to be here, guys. And, hope that I could answer as many questions as I possibly answered today.
Good man, thanks, Jace. Chris, I'll just start over with myself and just have a quick chat with Jason. Jason, Barbados, not a bad place to be locked down. Tell me what's it like there and what's going on?
Well, funny enough, we were in Ghana just before I came back home, and I was just hoping I wasn't going to be stuck in Ghana for any long period of time. But yeah, fortunately, we finished off the first class season, and then we were able to fly out. But lockdown in Barbados hasn't been too bad. We were in complete lockdown for I think 2 to 3 weeks. But since then, we've slowly but surely reopened, and we've gotten a lot more freedom. And life has been flirting to get back to normal. But I don't think any of us know what normal is going to be like for at least another couple of months, maybe years. So yeah, but we've opened up and reopened quite a bit, and just hoping to get back on our feet.
Yeah, Jason, you mentioned to us, and it's great to have you on this call. Just incidentally, guys, the chat box is open, so feel free. Any questions for Jason, do make sure to pop them into the chat box. You were saying, Jason, that you did meet up a little earlier today with a couple of the lads, and the fact you're getting back to training now. What is the plan? What are we looking at with this upcoming England tour? Does it happen? What are you hearing on that front?
Look, we've obviously been in dialogue with the ECB. Nothing has been confirmed as yet. I think in order for this to be rolled out, we've got to be 100% certain that our safety, comes first, and that the ECB puts as many protocols in place so that we can ensure that this virus doesn't get into what would be like a bubble, hosting everyone. But yeah, we haven't gotten any confirmation. If we do get this series go ahead, we will have to definitely be very, very cautious to ensure our safety, and it will be done behind closed doors.
Jason, obviously, hopefully we'll see some cricket. I think it's opening up sort of day by day, and obviously, as you said earlier, that you've done some training today. But what I'd like to do is try and take it back all the way to when you first started, and in particular around your leadership. Born talented, worked hard. What would you say about yourself and your colleagues that you've played with and against over the years?
I think I've been blessed. I've been born with the talent, but I've had to work really hard to get myself to the international level. I think fortunately for me, I've always made age group teams at a relatively young age. So I had maybe 2 or 3 years in each age group, and it was a blessing for me. I got the opportunity to get my feet wet quite early and then understand the dynamics of what it meant to play against guys who are older than me. And then, I never really looked back after my under-19 stint for West Indies under-19 in the Youth World Cup. Yeah, I did really well with the ball there particularly. And that propelled me into the Barbados first class team, West Indies 18s. And for me, it's just a combination of both. I think there's an abundance of talent around the world, let alone in the Caribbean. And talent can only get you so far. To me, you still have to put the hard yards in to be that much better than the other talented person, because I think, as I said before, there's an abundance of talent worldwide. So to separate yourself from that next person, you just got to work that extra mile harder.
Jason, you were made captain at just 23 years and 72 days. I think that still remains the youngest for the West Indies. What was it in particular about your personality that lends itself to a good leader of men?
Again, I go back to youth cricket days. I led Barbados teams and school days as well. I was always a captain and seen as a leader. I guess it's just my relationship with people. I'm quite sociable. I tend to get along with most groups. I don't have any enemies, or if I do, very little. And it's just a case where I kind of blend in with everyone. And for me, a strong point, I guess, in my leadership is understanding personalities. There are some personalities which need a little bit more tender love and care, and there are other personalities you can just allow to be free. There's some personalities you just gotta, give them an ego boost. Just ride on the ego a little bit more, and you tend to just understand the different dynamics based on the environment. And I think if the environment is not such that it breeds freedom and it breeds that openness, then you would never really truly understand the personalities within the room. So I think that's just one strong point of me being a leader. It has often sometimes gotten me in problems as well too, because I tend to be a little soft on people who I probably should be a lot tougher with. But it's a learning curve, and for me it's something where you can only get better over a period of time. It's not something that's learned overnight. It's not something that you can just drop on someone and say, well, yeah, you're the best leader. You've got to develop your style of leadership, and you've got to understand who you're dealing with.
Jason, and you touched on there learning and learning from people, but can you elaborate on maybe who you took leadership advice from, and who were your sort of role models, especially around the leadership in the changing room, because you had some awesome players around you.
Clive Lloyd. Clive Lloyd is one of the biggest inspirations so far in my life. He was actually chairman selectors who, at that time when he made me captain, and Clive and I had numerous conversations. To this day, we would still have conversations. He lives in England, and whenever I go over to England, it's always a case of, when are we going to have a dinner? When are we going to meet up? He's quote unquote like a father figure to me as well too. And then I've always had like close coaches to me, Dexter Toppin, Roddy Eswick, Ezra Mosley. And these guys are guys who I could lean on for anything. So with them, along with close teammates who I can lean on just to vent and get certain things off my chest, combine my support system, and all of them have made me into the person I am today, and particularly into the leader that I am today, because had not been for them, I'm not sure if I would have been able to get through leadership and get through captaining the West Indies team. But as I said, it's something that you only really learn after being put into it. I don't think it's a situation where you can basically handpick a leader knowing that he's going to be great or whatever the case would be. He has to go through his trials and tribulations and make his own assessment of leadership before he can actually become a really good leader.
Can you give us insight, Jason? You become captain at 23. There's older guys in the dressing room, some older guys who perhaps maybe thought, well, wait a minute, this is a young, I don't want to be demeaning here, but this is a young man still very much at the start of his career. He's now our captain. So did you have to seek out the more experienced players and sit with them first? And can you maybe share with us an anecdote? Who was the first person that you reached out to upon being made captain, just to have a little chat with?
For me, I felt at that stage it was more or less allowing things to take shape. So I didn't per se went to or go to any senior player and pretty much bombard them as to how I wanted to go. For me, it's just to feel it out. I wanted to get a clear sense of if there was going to be anybody who comes up openly to support me, or if I would have to really go and earn their respect and their trust. And slowly but surely I understood that, look, I had to earn their trust. It's not a situation where because I'm made captain, they would just automatically trust me. I had to go there and earn their trust. So it's for me now finding my way to earn their trust. And I felt performance was the best way. I think I would gain their respect and gain their trust from performing. And then more so on the trust point, it was about keeping transparency. I think West Indians have been scarred so much by administration in the past, and it's really broken down trust between the administration and the players. So I wanted to really open up a really transparent environment that people could see straight through me. It's not a case where there's doubt. And I think once you have doubt, it then creates that mistrust. So those are the two things that I embarked on when I first became lead captain of the West Indies team. I took over from Dwayne Bravo, obviously in the one-day format, and I had a good chat with Dwayne before I actually decided to take the captaincy. Dwayne and I have been very close from the inception, and he pushed me. He pushed me from a very young age as well too. So I felt as though it's only out of respect. I should really have a conversation with Dwayne around the whole captaincy.
And Jason, you touch again about learning. Everything you've mentioned so far about learning, and I can see from the friendship we've built how much you learn from other people and talk to people. Is it something, leadership and captaincy is a soft skill? Is it something that, you can read a manual and you become good at it? What, for you, obviously you've mentioned Clive Lloyd, where did you really sort of start digging and then actually perfect that leadership role?
I don't think there's any manual there that can tell you how to become a great leader. I think there's a lot of, I try to find the best phrase to use at the moment, but there's a lot of speculation out there as to what is the best tactics or methods to use in order to become a great leader. And don't get me wrong, I do believe that leadership has, some pretty common attributes. But to become the best leader, to me, is something that you really got to put into context. And in terms of leadership and being a successful leader, how do you gauge it? Many people gauge a successful leader based on results, and then other people gauge a successful leader sometimes on tactics, but there's always an argument or a debate as to which one precedes the other. And I don't know how you can do it, because arguably Stephen Fleming, I've always heard growing up, was one of the best leaders of the game. And if you look at our New Zealand team in that era, they weren't overly successful. They had their successes. They won a few series here and there, but collectively, it wasn't like an Australian dynasty or a West Indies 70s dynasty. So people might come and say Ricky Ponting was a great leader. People always say Clive Lloyd was a great leader, and that's based on the results that they got with their teams. But then you could always open up a debate as to, were there just superior teams, or was it great leadership that added to superior teams? So for me, it's always an ongoing battle. That's why I say that the best leader is based on the context of their situation. And I believe personally it has to do with results, but not results only from the standpoint of winning and losing, but from the standpoint of developing or getting the best out of individuals as well too. So for me, it covers it holistically, where you can gauge a good leader as to how he managed his troops, how he got his troops to excel. And then obviously the last criteria for me is winning and losing. So I hope that kind of answers a bit of your question.
Perfect.
It does. There is no doubt it does, Jason. And it's interesting there, you talk about how best to get the very best out of your teammates. How do you deal with Mavericks? And this is a question that I asked Ashley Giles, the ECB chief, a few weeks back. When you have someone like a Chris Gayle, who in a lot of ways does what he does best, goes out there and plays belligerently. He wants to just go after the bowler. How do you manage a talent like that and ensure that the fundamentals that you're trying to implement within the West Indies team are adhered to, but equally you don't want to quell a talent like a Mr. Chris Gayle?
Funny enough, I think I learned how to deal with Chris at the back end of my time with Chris, to be honest. And I sort of just allowed Chris to be himself, understand like Chris is a household name. You know, Chris is a superstar. So for me, I tried not to really get into Chris's way too much, because at the end, they wanted to get the best out of it. We would have had discussions here and there, and particularly during the World Cup qualifiers, I went straight to his room. You know, I went straight into Chris's room. I called him on the phone and said, Chris, I really need to chat with you. And I called him, and he was very, very open to it. You know, I went to Chris's room. First time I've ever been in Chris's room. And, you know, we sat down, we had a really good chat. And then just coming on to the end, it was just mainly just sitting Chris down, telling Chris what you really want from him. And then you just give him Chris all the resources to execute it. You know, he's obviously at that point now where he's not as mobile and as agile as he used to be. He's getting on in age. So some of the things that you would expect a youngster to do, you can't really expect Chris to achieve. But the main thing is that when Chris Gill crosses that line, you know, he performs. You know, and for me, I just try to do everything in my blood to create that environment where Chris is comfortable, so I can get the best out of him on the field. But the other side of that is that the things that you're asking Chris is to still pull some of the youngsters along, you know, have a lot of ongoing discussions with them, invite them to your room, you know, build that relationship with them where they trust you, you trust them. And for me, that overall helps the grand scheme of things, you know. And I found working with Chris to be really, really easy, man. He's, unlike what people may think or say about Chris, to me, Chris is one of the stalwarts of West Indies cricket, to be honest. And he's done a significant amount for West Indies cricket. And I think he deserves all the recognition and respect that comes to his name. And I don't think there should be anything or many bad things to be said of Chris. You know, to me, he's done West Indies cricket a whole lot of good.
And Jason, we talk about leadership, and you've obviously got a battle on your hands. You need to balance your own game and working on your game and working on scoring runs and taking wickets, but you need to upskill yourself in your leadership. How did you balance that, and how did you go about it? Was it just that it started to naturally occur, or did you focus certain time elements?
It's a good question. When I first became captain, I was in South Africa in 2014. And I did reasonably well in the series. Then we went straight to the World Cup, the 2015 World Cup. And I had a really good World Cup there personally, but it then got to the stage where I tried to get so many things bettered off the field, you know, for our players. So I started to fight a few more battles for the players. And I felt at that stage suddenly my focus shifted from actually playing cricket to dealing with off the field administrative kind of things. And it dwindled my focus a bit. And I got to a point where I said, look, my cricket for me is a little stagnant at the moment, and it's not going in the direction I really wanted to go. So I had to really sit back and analyze where it was and where I wanted to go. And I felt the solution was just to shut out a lot of the peripherals, which was just fighting battles which I feel were impossible at that stage. You know, it wasn't really a case where I felt as though I could win a lot of the battles, and it was just ongoing frustration, ongoing time. It was very time consuming, and I lost focus. So I got to one point where I said, well, look, I've done everything I could possibly do, but at the moment, the only thing that I could do in order to stay in my position is to perform. So I needed to get my performances back on track. So I put everything else aside, and I just started to dial in a little bit more on myself and trying to get my preparation right, which I felt wasn't an issue, but I spent a little bit more time thinking about preparing, as opposed to just preparing and preparing well. I put a lot more thought process into it, and then I got a good break, and I never really looked back from there.
A lot of youngsters watching this, and Severe, I can promise Severe, we will get to some of your questions that you're popping in the chat box. We'll get to an awful lot of your questions. But as you've got older, Jason, what is the kind of thing that you hold true? And what's the, I guess, piece of advice to any young cricketer? The older you get, your appreciation for the game and the sport at large, what comes to mind?
It's a tough question, man. There's so many things I can speak about. I know for sure that you only really get the true sense of Test cricket after you've played it over, let's say 3 to 5 years.
Wow.
Clive Lloyd always sat me down and said that he only really learned to play Test cricket after his third year, and understood Test cricket after 3 years of playing it. And when he first told me, I was just like baffled, because in 3 years you could potentially play maybe 30, 40 Test matches. And I felt as though you should really understand what Test cricket is all about, maybe in your fifth, your sixth Test match. But it takes so much time, and there's so many different scenarios that could play out in a Test match that you would only understand when you put through them. You know, particularly time is one of the greatest aspects of Test cricket that I've really understood. You know, and when I say time in the context of you having a lot more time than you think, time in the context of knowing when to attack, knowing when to defend, and more or less, you know, knowing the moments where you need the moments in the game where you really know you need to grab hold of. You know, because if you don't grab hold of this moment at this present time, the game could really slip away from you. And I think I've gotten a much greater understanding of that. So I could really I could look at the game now and say, well, look, okay, this game is going in this direction. I need to grab a hold of this before it goes too far south. You know, the game is going just the way we planned it to go. We need to stay on this. This is a very tight moment. So particularly in the field, I'm a lot more rigid in terms of plans, because that is where my domain really falls, you know, on the field, and they can make decisions. When it's two people outside batting, you know, you really leave the partnership up to them and to form their partnership. But particularly on the field, I really say to the guys, look, we're in a really good position here. We can't let it slip. We need to keep building pressure. And pressure is something I really preach in the group, because I believe that the more pressure you build, the easier things become. You may not get the results right there and then, but the game doesn't go away from you. So you build the pressure, you keep building the pressure. The game doesn't slip, and the game is really well poised. There's not a situation where the opposition is getting away, but it's a situation where you've been really made to work hard for these wickets. And once you get that partnership breaker, then the floodgates really open up. So that's something I really understood later on, or after a couple of years of playing Test cricket. You know, we really need to keep tabs on things. You know, really hone in on what we're about, so we don't let the game slip. So I mean, if there's something I can really speak to, it's just time, and managing time in the game, managing the situations in the game as it relates to the time, and that's something that I think is very, very precious in Test cricket.
Jason, obviously you touched heavily on the Test side of cricket there. I'd like to just ask you about the T20 side and ODIs. You've had some of the most explosive batsmen, quickest bowlers in your sides. How do you keep on top of players when spirits are high and there's a game tomorrow and there's a game next week? How do you just keep the chain rolling?
I think when spirits are high, everything flows. You know, you're just in that zone. The hardest situations are when things are down. You know, when you haven't won a game, or when you need to win a game. But I always find that that's when West Indies gets the best of their players. You know, when we're backs against the wall, when we're under pressure. You know, sometimes we don't start a series well, we finish really, really well. So I think in the scenarios where things are well, is more or less trying to let the players understand, well, look, that's only one game, that's only one session, or that's only one period. You know, we've got to go back out and do it again. And then when things aren't great, you know, you really got to understand the situation that you're in, knowing where you're at that particular time. I don't think you can move forward until you absolutely understand clearly where you're at that particular time. So, and then you start to just like formulate how you can go forward, how you can get yourself out of these situations, how you can make better, how you can improve. And all of these things just really come into context. And Brian Lara, I spent a fair bit of time with Brian Lara, and Brian would always sit us down and say, well, look, so if you take West Indies' recent success in Test cricket and you break down the batting, we've really had major contributions from 6, 7, 8, which is really myself, Shane Dorich, Roston Chase. We've done a bulk of the scoring for West Indies in the recent past. But when you look at the context of when we bat, the situation is already made. You know, it's not a situation where you have to think too much about what to do. You're under pressure because wickets have fallen, and you got to get the team out of that situation. So the opposition at that period of time are on top, so they attack. So you don't really have to go looking for ways to score. because in them attacking, once you play solidly, then it opens up scoring. You don't have to go up and looking for scoring. At that stage, you're just looking to get past the first spell that you face, see a few spells, and then you keep pushing on. But in a context where maybe you've gone off to a really good start and the top order has clicked, and then you come to the 6, 7, 8, then that for me, that's the harder phase of the game, because the situation is not really too much, really made for you. You then now have to work a little harder, and grafting then occurs, because the opposition then are suddenly on the, I would say, the defensive. So the field is probably spread a little bit more. It's harder to score, and you've got to be really, really patient to get past that phase. Maybe instead of looking at boundaries, you've got to turn over the strike a little bit more. And it then brings things back into your favor the longer you can do that. So maybe you could come in a situation where West Indies are 200 odd for 3, 4, where it's a decent position, but you really want to capitalize on it by the end of the innings and say, well, look, you made 450 plus. But the only way you can do that is if you're in that scenario and you say to yourself, well, look, it makes not more sense me trying to force scoring. I almost have to play the waiting game, see all of the bowlers. So at least I always give myself a chance to see 2 spells from each bowler. I think if I see 2 spells from each bowler, then I pretty much set. I could be 40, 50 odd, and then the opposition is at my mercy. Whereas I go in looking to score, I probably take a few more chances than I should. Maybe thinking of the time in the game, and you get yourself out, and then suddenly you go from 200 for 3 in a good position, and then you could be 250 for 4, 5, 6, and suddenly opposition is right back into the game. So, and that strikes back into my point when I made about knowing when to attack and knowing when to defend, and knowing periods of the game where, look, if the opposition is at 200 for 3 and I'm in the field, it's my job to make scoring very, very difficult, not let the game run away. Because once I keep the game in my grasp, then when I do get a wicket, then I could go on the attack. The batsman is most vulnerable when he first comes in. So I attack him straight up. Maybe I can get 2 or 3 wickets. You go bang, bang. And then suddenly the game goes from 200 odd for 3, 200 odd for 5. Then the opposition is now going to go back into their shell. So then the bowling team is back on top. So it's just the momentum swings. I understand those momentum swings for me. See, there's so many things I could talk about, but that's just some scenarios that I could pose to you guys to just give you a better understanding of it.
Jason, if you can, keep on that captain's hat for just a couple of more minutes, because I want to get to a question that caught my eye. I know there's an awful lot of Indians and Indian cricket followers on this particular webinar. Let's talk about the current India team. And again, Virat Kohli's not viewing this, not that I'm aware of anyway, so let's get technical for a second. You go up against India, the world #1, the best test team right now. What do you do? What's the game plan? What do you target? Let's give us a bit of an insight for those that are interested in that.
It's a good question. I don't think I've been in India so far in my captaincy tenure, but India, we've drawn a few test matches with them. India is a very good team, and I think India is a very good team based on the fact that they've got reliable players in terms of their batting and bowling. So they've got known wicket takers. When you look at their bowling attack, Mohammad Shami has been doing it for a couple of years. Jasper Bumrah's just come into Test cricket and he's doing it. Ishant Sharma is probably the longest standing member in their Test team. He's been doing it over a few years. So you can look at their bowling attack, and then they've got Kuldeep Yadav, who's come into the fore, Ravichandran Ashwin, a world class off spinner. So you look at that bowling lineup and you can say, well, look, I could see at least 2 or 3 wicket takers, which is golden for any Test squad. Flip side of that, now you've got reliable players. So their top 4, you guarantee that they're probably going to score 100 every 4 innings, maybe every 5 innings. So it gives you stability. And when you look at that from the opposition standpoint, you've got to try to find a way to break it, but it's a lot to break. So for me, it goes back down to you sticking to your basics. People like Pujara, for instance, Pujara is just a patience guy. So you got from one extreme where you got a guy who Agarwal, who opens it batting with potential KL Rahul, who going to be kind of fluent. Then you got number 3 now, Pujara, who's a grafter. So he'll wear you down. Before at Kohli just picks up the tempo a little bit more. Then Rahanen kind of pulls it back a little bit, but at the end he can still step it up. So it's a good contrast to their backline. So there's a lot to break, because you could get 2 early wickets, then you get Pujara who can really wear you down. Takes a lot of energy out of you as an opposition. Then you get Kohli now, who you can probably get on top of early, but if you don't get on top of him early, he can make you really, really hurt. Pain. It cause you a lot of pain, sorry. And then Rahane now could then suck more energy out of you. But then the luxury that they've got Ashwin, who's got Test hundreds, Jadeja, who's got Test hundreds, and they're lower order players, quality lower order players at that. So as an opposition, you're looking at that. You're just telling yourself, well, look, if I'm going to beat these guys, then I've got to break the batting as early as possible. And anytime you don't break the batting early as possible, then you give them all free rein and luxury to run the game, because they back pretty deep. So I really need to get into their batting lineup, maybe have them 3-4 down quite early when my bowlers are relatively fresh. Because if my bowlers are worn and I allow them to build partnership at the top, it becomes so much harder. You stare down declarations, And then in terms of the bowling now, it's such a important attack that you've got to, for me, I think it's a situation you've got to find the conditions or understand the conditions. And then you have to be attacking to 1 or 2 of those bowlers. You can't allow them to bowl. So if conditions aren't so much in favor of the spinners in Ashwin and Jadeja, then for me, those are the guys you've got to put pressure on. Because they will bowl a lot of overs, because that's pretty much the combination they go with. 3 seamers, 2 spinners. So if I put pressure on 2 spinners, then they got to go back to seam. And that's where I could probably buy my time if the conditions are favorable for seam. But on the flip side of that, if things are on the high for spinners, then I got to find a way to attach the seam bowlers. So it's not a situation where those are, makeshift bowlers per se. So it's a tricky thing, man. It's a tricky thing. But patience has to come into the fore. You've got to really, really trust your defense as a player to know that you can buy your time and wear them down equally, because they're normal human beings as well too. They get tired. So as a byline, you got to wear them down, but your technique has got to be good to wear them down. And that's just, I guess, strategically how you can really look at it. Another thing that's crucial all the time is chances created in the field. You got to hold your chances. You can't give good players two opportunities while batting. You got to hold your chances. If you don't hold your chances, drop players like Kohli, Rahane, Pujara. Trust me, they're going to make you pay.
Jason, I've been really privileged to be able to see you through your career. I met you when you were West Indies A, all those years ago, I think it was about 10 years ago now. And then the next time I seen you, you're playing for the first team. The next time you came over to Dubai, you were with CSK, I believe, with the RPL. And then at 23, you were captain of the West Indies. Talk me through the jump between those different things, and even as junior level. What was the biggest jump that you've sort of came up against? The biggest problem that you faced?
I would say it's a problem, but I think the eye-opening part of my career, or the push that I needed, was I played against England when they toured the Caribbean in 2009, I think it was. And I was 16 years old. And England had a 2-day warm-up game, or a touring team game, against a Barbados select team. And at that time, I think Strauss was the captain, it was Cook, Oesha, Ravi Papara came into that series as well. Kevin Peterson played the series. And then in terms of their bowlers, I had Steve Harmis and Monty Panesar ran side bottom. I think, I'm not sure. Ajmal Khan, he didn't play, but he was part of that team. But I was put into that game at the very last minute, and I had a really good game. We bowled first, and I got 2 wickets. I got Cook out, and I got Oesha out. And I was a 60-year-old guy bowling at Oesha and Alistair Cook, and then getting them out. I was really, really pumped up. But then they declared late on in the evening, and I saw, and the pavilion was placed from the side. So watching cricket from the side, fast bowlers just look left, they're bowling rapid. So I saw this guy Amjad Khan steaming in, and man, he let go some balls. And I said to my dad the night, because we were overnight, I said to my dad, I'm not going back. I can't see that. I've never seen anything like that as a 16-year-old. And I told him I'm not going back. I could just call and say I'm sick, And my father's like, nah, you can't chicken out. You got to go. So it's like, no way going back up there. So then my father, we ended up going back up, and funny enough, I never forget, my first ball face in that game was from Ryan Saibahn. And Saibahn was up quick at that stage. He was sharp early up in his career, I think, but that was at the back end of his career. But I could literally see the grill of my helmet just shaking, man. I was that nervous. And, I just got to a point where, look, I said to myself, well, look, I'm out here ready. Maybe people don't expect me to perform. Just play some shots, just enjoy it. And, I got past him. Then Monty came on the other end. And I played 2 cover drives and one off Monty Panesar. And for me, that settled everything. Settled everything down. And I got 50 in that game. And that game, I would say, pushed me. Because after that, I made Barbados first class team. So I played first class cricket at 17. That was the last game of the season. And then I never looked back. I mean, after that, I was offered two back contracts, one from Newberry and then one from Ganamore. The managing director at that time, Peter Wright, he was at the game. And Peter Wright offered me a contract. And from there, for me, that's when it really started for me. After that, I played, obviously, youth cricket, West Indies under 19. And again, that was a turning point for me in my career.
It's interesting there, Jason, you mentioned you were shaking, you're 16 years of age, you're going out there, you're taking on a great England team. Over the piece, and we've had a lot of questions in asking you this very question. In terms of the very best that you've faced from a fast bowling perspective, from a spinning perspective, who's the couple of names that's come to mind, and perhaps give us an anecdote or two as to why they've maybe given you a few sleepless nights?
Well, I've never had sleepless nights, one.
That doesn't surprise me.
But I played against Mitchell Johnson my first one-day series in Perth. Well, made my debut in Perth, but I was part of the touring squad the previous year in Bangladesh, but I didn't play. So my first game was against Australia in Perth. And that day, I'd never seen anything like that. Mitchell start from one end, Mitchell Johnson from the other. Rapid pace. And I got hit in my ribs in that game from Mitchell Johnson. And for me, that was one of the quickest spells I've had in international cricket. I always remember that spell. And I always remember spelling Cape Town. And I came out to bat late evening, and Dale Steyn was charging. When I said charging, it was like, I just got her point because he was swinging it as well. And, he normally takes it away. And I just got a point. I said, well, look, I'm not going to get bowled. I'm not going to get LBW. So I'm just going to make sure my bat is in front of my pad. And if it swings past, it swings past. I was hoping to actually bowl sharp because then I could actually probably get out the way and challenge my stumps. But for me that evening, it was late in the evening, man. It was like coming on to the end of the day, and they were in the field all day. And to see him charging at that stage, I was just blown away, man. Never seen anything like it. So those 2 spells I could really, really remember. But yeah, I wouldn't say I had sleepless nights, but those spells I distinctly remember all the time.
Jason, there's one night that you maybe did have a sleepless night, the double ton. Was that a sleepless night? Tell me through it.
That was a funny series. Well, funny innings for me. I had taken the last series off due to injury. I'd had a slight tear in my right shoulder, and I was actually doing therapy in England, a clinic called Isokinetic in Harley Street. And one day, just remember, I was running on the treadmill because I had to go run and warm up. Running on the treadmill, and I just went in a zone where it was almost as though I was dreaming. Running on the treadmill, I always want to score a test century in front of my home country. And I'd gone, I think before that double, I had like 3 or 4 half centuries at Kensington Oval in Test match cricket, but I never scored 100. So I just pictured it, man, and everything felt so real. And I had a lot of time to run on the treadmill. When I really snapped out of that zone, I was way past the time. It was probably like 5 or 6 minutes over the time, and I could not believe it. So I actually like visualized it before it happened. Went back home, and I felt like crap. Warm. I mean, trying to get myself ready for the series. I didn't feel as though I was batting well. First innings, I got out really soft, caught and bowl. One that kind of held up on me. But in terms of feeling, I just didn't feel right. And I remember battling through the evening to withstand Jimmy and Ben Stokes. And I felt as though once I got past those spells, I could come back the next morning, see off the first spells, because those first spells, they would probably gone a little longer, trying to break the partnership with Shane and I. And I knew if I got past that, I could be in for something special. And we just took it 5 runs by 5 runs by 5 runs. And before I knew it, I was to 100. But that was just a day that I guess everything just clicked. And funny enough, when we had a lead, when I got to 100, we had a lead in excess of 300. And I felt it was a lot of runs on that surface. And I said to Shane, well, look, Shane was on, I think, 50, 60 odd when I got to 100. And I said to him, well, look, I'm going to stay here to get you 100. But after that, I mean, like, whatever happens, happens. So I made sure I stayed out there. And Shane kept me out there a lot longer than I wanted to be out there. Because I knew I had to go back and bowl as well, too. So I really didn't want to kill all my energy out there behind when I knew we had a lot of runs on the board anyways. But he took so long to get the 100, so I was just out there, just buying time. He finally got 100, I think it was 160 odd or 150 odd. And I said and we went back and said, well, look, we can look to declare. And the guys were saying, like, nah, just bang on a little longer. So myself and Richard Piper had already decided we're going to declare. And then we told the guys, and then everybody just came to me, and it was something remarkable because I just couldn't believe it. Everybody was like, no, we shouldn't declare it, man. Just bat on a bit longer. Because they wanted a session to bowl at England and that evening, but the guys said, well, no, always enough. And I went on, batting on, and got the double 100, but it was something that I didn't plan. I just wanted to declare a little earlier, and it was just one of those days that I guess was for me.
And give us a little insight. Who's the first person you called?
First person I called?
Yeah.
You mean when I scored it?
Yeah.
I can't even remember. I think everybody who was worthwhile being in my life at that stage was at the ground. But no, I can't remember who I called, to be honest. But yeah, everyone, all my family was there for sure. Yeah.
I'm conscious, Jason, we've got about 10 minutes. I know you've got a meeting at bang on the top of the hour. I want to get to some questions, as many as we possibly can. Just one other one very quickly. You mentioned England. You've mentioned them twice now, the double ton, and at 16 years of age playing against some of the finest players that England have produced. Just give us a bit of an insight. As a captain, Jason, do you adopt the same kind of mantra, the mentality with each of the test nations? Or do you adopt different in terms of maybe England? Are you more aggressive? Are you more mouthy? With India, are you quieter? Or with New Zealand, Australia, are you more aggressive? Does that change with each team that you face? Or is it West Indies have their way of playing and you stick to it?
I think some teams pump you up a little bit more than others based on the chirp. You know, there are some teams that are very verbal and would definitely give you there's a lot of sledging going on, but there are other teams who are very, very quiet. So it varies in that context, but I'm up for it certainly every series, man. Teams are obviously the higher ranked teams I really want to do well against, because for me that's when you get your recognition, man. Sometimes people don't remember or value great performances against teams that are lower ranked than you or who are a little bit more further down in your ranking scheme, but particularly Australia, India, South Africa, England, New Zealand. Those are teams that I really love to play against because, you know, they're the better teams in the world. You know, you want to do well against the best in the world to say that you've beaten them. And today, I've done well against England. I've done well against India. I started against New Zealand and Barbados. I got 50 against them. So yeah, I've had my fair share of success with each one of those teams. So I'm really pumped up now more than ever to just break the barrier or break the silence for West Indies cricket. I'm just trying to push them back up to the top. But it's not a one-man job. You know, I've just got to get everybody on board, and we've got to do things together to achieve that.
Well, let's get to some questions. I don't know, I'm sure, Sam, you've got a couple more, but let's get to as many as we possibly can here. Great one, this. When you are in low spirits, maybe because of a loss from a big match, what or who inspires you to go again?
The bad performance. The bad performance is more enough motivation to get you going to turn it around. I mean, I remember when I first started playing Test cricket, I said to myself, "Oh wow, if this is what Test cricket is all about, maybe Test cricket is not for me." It was so hard on the body, and we had some really long days, day and a half in the field, sometimes 2 days in the field, and it was like, wow, I'm not sure if I can hold up to this. But then you get that one performance, you score 50, you get 5 wickets, or you get a big wicket of a really top player. It's like, wow, I don't understand why it's called Test cricket. And immediately when you have that glimpse of success, it just overshadows any negative, bad moment you'd have had. So for me, that's my motivation. You just keep going, the successes that I've had, and then to turn bad performances around, to make sure that, you're always, seen in a really good light.
Good one, this from Ayan. He's asking, what is the one tip that you would give an aspiring young cricketer?
The one tip I would give an aspiring young cricketer would be to do a self-analysis. Just understand yourself. I think before you look anywhere else, you've got to understand the tools that you have in terms of your strengths and also your weaknesses. So I just think that knowing yourself, you could then formulate a plan as to how you want to go forward. So I think now if you know you're very strong on front foot and you're not as strong on your back foot, then you could formulate a plan as to how you can bring your game to a level playing field. And I could draw a similar scenario in bowling as well, but I think that self-analysis is the first thing. So you need to know where you're at as a person, and then you could just formulate your plans and goals going ahead.
Great one, and it's a good follow-up this. Thanks to JB for this one. What advice would you recommend for youngsters who are captaining a team where they are the most talented player in their side and often feel under huge pressure to perform? That's a great question.
My advice to them is to focus on performing. I think when you focus on performing, then you're in good spirits. You often go back to any pro athlete. When they're at their best, they're calm. They're really dialed in and calm, and they're not flustered. They don't overthink things. When you ask them what is on their mind at a particular stage, is just one or two simple thoughts. So I think performance breeds to that simplicity and that calm level-headedness. So I think once you have that level-headedness, then you suddenly make decisions that are deemed the right decisions at that particular time. So I think once you focus on your performances, it then gives you that clear sense of, yes, I've got that self-satisfaction. I've done my part as a player. Now my decisions now could be influenced based on my feelings and based on the scenario of the game. So I think it gets you into that better frame of mind. Because if you can imagine you not being in the best frame of mind because you're not performing, then suddenly you're under a little bit more pressure to perform and also get the team to perform. Whereas now if you cover your personal performances, then you suddenly can then shift your focus and all your energy now to the team.
Listen, I've got a couple of quick ones. You'll like this one. Will Quinn, are you still a big Spurs football fan?
Good afternoon to Will or wherever he is. But yeah, Will actually brought me on to the Spurs. I think that's the recognition he's looking for. But yeah, still Tottenham Hotspurs fan.
Good man. Listen, we've got one from our under-18s It's Just Cricket captain. How do you deal with somebody that potentially has a bit of an ego and he's going, I want one more over, give me another over, but it's time to take him off? How do you deal with somebody like that?
Good question. I'll draw on Shannon Gabriel, for example. Shannon is one of those guys who would always tell you he wants another over, but when back in my mind, I know, well, look, if I give Shannon another over, it delays now his time to come back and bowl another spell. So I tend to try to work with him on certain occasions, and then there are times where, like, all right, look, give me the ball. Sometimes in the gut, and you guide it a lot by the gut. Sometimes your gut says, well, look, I could give Shannon this over and work around how I can make back up his second spell or how I can bring him back at the time I know I would need him to come back. But I think it's more or less you thinking about the situation of the game. could the situation in the game dictate me giving Shannon another over? Yes, I think it's 100% it could dictate. So I got to look at the context of the game. If India are 200 and something sorry, 100 and a little bit for 3, and Shannon asked me for the next over after Shannon has 2 wickets, or I know it may take him a lot longer to come back, but at the end of the day, this next over could break the shackles and give me the breakthrough that I'm looking for to push through, which would then give Shannon that energy to say, well, look, I got to come back because I can want these wickets at the back end. So to me, it's more or less understanding the situation. So I think if the situation says, well, look, I'm going to need Shannon to come back at this particular stage, so I can't afford not to have him at that stage. So I may need to just pull the ball from him at that stage just to ensure that I have him in my back pocket when I really need him further down the game.
And the last one, Jason, is just coming from a young lad. What are your thoughts on the no use of saliva and sweat with application to the ball, and how's that going to change your game or everybody's game?
Good one.
Hopefully it doesn't force teams to burn sandpaper, but look, I think it's something that we all have to just trial out to see how it goes. I'm not sure because I've been following it to a certain extent, so I'm not sure if there's been a final decision made on if there would. I know for sure there wouldn't be any saliva, but I think there was still debate on whether or not perspiration could go on the ball. And I think to date they're still allowing perspiration to go on the ball. But having said that, I am sure that we would have to trial it to see what happens. I can't really sit here and say anything more, elaborate a little bit deeper on it. But I think if we do get saliva on it, I mean perspiration on it, at least there's still some moisture you could create to get a shine on the ball. But if not, I heard Kookaburra were in production and making this wax, and they were quite keen on trying this wax that Kookaburra is producing. But again, I would only know how that reacts when I actually do use it. But hopefully, I just said before, it doesn't force teams to go to desperate measures.
Jason, last one from me, because I know you've got to run off shortly, and this is one from a lot of people are asking. If you could pick any player right now to bring into that West Indian team, who do you pick?
Any player, what do you mean? In terms of
any team. You're allowed one player, you can turn them into a Jamaican, a Bermudian. Who do you pick?
I am actually clueless.
Oh, come on now. You can't do that to us. We've been waiting for this question.
I feel as though my answer could be taken out of context. So I'm trying to find the best way
Explain it. Give us the context. Who do you pick?
I pick a batsman who will get me runs, a bowler who can get me wickets, and a fielder who can take catches. I think that's the best way to put it. But look, we all know who the world-class players are in the world. And it's funny enough, in this quarantine time, you've seen so many posts on Cricinfo and I see websites and social media around these all-time 11s or best 11s and stuff. And for me, if I get into that, I'll probably get myself into trouble. But
if you're saying wickets, runs, and catches, do we deduce from that you would pick Ben Stokes right now?
Well, again, I try my best not to answer this question anyway, but any controversial way. Look, based on the ICC rankings, I would pick whoever's number one in all 3 departments. And I think if I need a batter, I'll pick the number 1 batter in Test cricket. If I need a bowler, I'll pick the number 1 bowler in cricket.
Good man. Talking like a captain there, Jason. We'll let you off for that.
Good man, Jason. Listen, Jason, thanks for your time. Obviously, those that don't know Jason as well as I do, Jason would either be on the golf course today or he'd be training with the cricket ball and working hard. So, Jason, we really, really do appreciate your time and an insight into your life and your career. So, from me and the floor, thank you very, very much. And we'll see you in the UAE hopefully very soon.
Thanks, Jason.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me. I'm sorry that I couldn't stay a little longer, but yeah, as I said, I've got a meeting now to go on to. But thanks for having me, and I hope that maybe I can be back in the not too distant future to probably answer or tackle a few more of your tricky questions. You know, hopefully know more about players that are relevant to my team, or ways to manage a cricket ball. But thanks for having me, guys, and to all listening, I wish you all the best in whatever you endeavor to do. Stay safe, stay hopeful, stay positive, and I'm sure we could all beat this COVID-19. So thanks again, guys.
Thanks, Jason. Thanks for your time.
Cheers.
Thanks, Jason.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, guys. Big thanks to everyone who's tuned in. I do apologise that some of your questions we didn't get to, obviously an hour with Jason. So I'll make sure Sam is very good friends with Jason. So he will forward as many questions as he can on to Jason, and we'll maybe get him again in the near future, because I think you'll all agree, very candid, very good as Jason. You did promise me a good interview, Sam, and that was excellent. So thank you for that.
No problem at all. Guys, thanks for tuning in. Stay in tune. We've got one on Thursday. I believe it's 2:30 UAE time. Carl Coetzee, Cricket Scotland captain, MBE, and obviously Durham cricketer. So good insight into his career and his path as well. Thanks, guys. Thanks for your time.